Hi, this is Kayla Murphy from the Fabric Garden in Madison, Maine and fabricgarden.com. Today I'm going to be talking and showing the Janome 5812 machine. If you were one of the lucky children that entered a quilt into Maine Quilts this past year, I, in my sponsorship, are going to be giving away free machines to all those children. So we have 26 machines, and hopefully a lot of you children will be able to be learning and sewing and having their journey continue on their quilting and sewing. So I'm going to show you some stuff.
Yep.
So the 5812 is going to be a mechanical machine that has different stitches. But most importantly, I'd like to show threading and bobbin first.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to wind a bobbin. I'd like to show you. You're going to take your thread and you're going to place it on the spool holder, and then take your cap and put it on tight. So I don't want this thread wobbling around. So nice and tight. Take the end of your thread. You see this little silver piece right here? I'm going to take my thread and click it under, just like that, and then underneath the tension screw right here, the bobbin screw. We need a bobbin, and we're going to be using a Janome bobbin. So I'm going to take the end of the thread and put it up through the hole. So I'm from the inside out. Place your bobbin on the spindle. And this is what I'm going to call my tail thread. I'm going to hold that. Next, what I'd like to do is push the post over so it holds in place. You have your machine plugged in, and you do have a foot control. So when I press the foot control, that's going to wind up the bobbin. Now, see my tail here? I want to cut that close to the bobbin so I don't have an extra tail in there. So we wind right up. You can do a little bit, you can do a full one, but it's nicely wound even because we really snugged it into that bobbin screw. So that's a nice way to get a good bobbin. I'll just stop a little bit right here. So what we're going to do is just stop, foot off the pedal, pop it over, pull it up, and cut. So we're going to be ready to thread and do the bobbin. So we have our thread up top with that cap. Whenever you thread your machine, make sure your foot, your presser foot is up. It releases the tension so the thread will lay in there nice and tight. So foot up, I'm going to take my thread, I'm going to click it under here. I'm going to go down to number 2 and back up. Now, we don't see what's called the take-up lever, that silver piece. So what I'm going to do is take my hand wheel over here, and I'm going to turn it clockwise towards you so that that take-up lever is up. At this point, I always hold my thread and tug. This way we know we're caught in this pathway and the tensions. So give it a tug. Now I'm going to just wrap it and click. Down here we have a needle guide right like this. And now I'm going to thread the needle. When I thread the needle, I like to have the foot down so I have tension on my thread. I'm going to cut my thread with a nice sharp edge. My needle threads from front to back, and you can see we have a nice white coloring here, so it should be fairly easy to put that thread through the needle. So that goes front to back. So we're 50% ready. This is a bobbin area, right? We always need a top thread and a bobbin to make a stitch. You can see how much thread you have left, but I want to remove my cover. This black latch, when I push that in to the inside of the machine, the latch comes off. So we have our bobbin cover ready to use again. I have a bobbin in there already, so I'm going to show you how to take out a bobbin. I like to lift up my press-up bar again, lever right on the inside, and I'm going to hold this black area is your bobbin case. I like to hold that and take my finger and just pull out your bobbin so this is staying stable. We're going to match up and put our nice orange thread in. So what I'd like to do any bobbin, any Janome bobbin, letter P, have that tail coming off so it looks like the letter P. I'm going to drop it in, and what's going to happen is I let it flow. See how it's kind of just coming out, that little notch right there? Let it flow. Hold your bobbin and take your thread to the left, and it clicks right in. You got to make sure it clicks in because that's the bobbin tension. We have our bottom thread or bobbin thread. We want to get it up to the top. So what I do is hold your needle thread, take your hand wheel, turn it towards you one rotation, and just gently pull, and what happens? There's a nice little loop there. That loop is going to be your bobbin thread coming up. We have two threads. Always start with your threads in your foot towards the back. If I had a lot of thread here, we do have a nice side thread cutter on this machine, so we can just cut our threads. Last but not least, you want your cover back on. There's two little notches here. I'm going to line it up very simply and press down. So right now, we have threaded our machine and you're ready to sew. So you're going to have your thread up top, your bobbin, and ready to go. So let's talk about your different stitches and things. This style that's A through G is your stitch choice. This style 0 through 4 is your stitch length, long and short. So we're going to start with what I would call basic straight stitch. These dials move, okay? You hear it clicking. I want to go to A. A is shown right here, and there's a little picture, that little circle there, that relates to the opening of the feed dogs right there. So this needle is in the middle. So when I bring my needle down, we're smack in the middle. That will line up with all your seam guides. So if you're sewing a 5/8 inch seam, you can line your fabric right up. Now, this here is your stitch length. Tiny, tiny, tiny stitches is going to be close to 0. Average is about 2. Basting or gathering, about 4. So we're going to start on 2 because I want to show you that first. So first thing you want to do, you lifted up your presser foot, right? That's always up. And I'd like to mention, if you needed extra lift, okay, little thicker fabrics or so, don't hesitate to pull that up. We do have a good feed system. So you always want to start that needle sewing on fabric. You don't want to sew on air. We don't want to be like this and shoving it under there. Start on air. So you could use a 5/8 inch seam, foot down. I'm going to start with a regular one. We have our presser foot, so when I use my presser foot, we can sew. Now, sometimes you need a back stitch to secure your seam. This is your reverse lever. So when I hold that in and stitch back, we're sewing backwards. So right now, we have a nice guide your fabric, kind of come to the end. You want to secure it again and be done. Now, my needle's in the fabric. We want to make sure when we pull that fabric out, that needle is up. How do you do that? This is your hand wheel. Take your hand wheel, rotate it towards you. When you see that nice take-up lever right there, you know you're in the highest position, which is good. I'm going to lift up, pull, and cut. So very nice seam. Now you want to go a little longer. You might want to baste. So I'm now going to take my stitch length and go to 4. So this right now, we're going to see, and I'm not going to back stitch this time. I'm going to just, like if I was gathering, I would just take and go. Again, hand wheel, look over here, take up lever, perfect. And what that would be is a much longer stitch length. So long and short, pick the stitch. Now we have a couple other stitches. I'm just going to highlight a few. Zigzag, very popular. C. Well, what do you see in C? You see a lot of different size zigzags over here. This really is the different widths of the zigzag. So I'm going to stay consistent on my length. Remember my length dial? To 2. But I'm going to start really tiny in my C right here. And what that will show you is if we were doing just a tiny little zigzag. Now I'm going to turn this as I go, click by click, to show you you can get different width zigzags for whatever you choose. Again, hand wheel towards you, take up, lever up. Just like that. So we did some different nice zigzags. You have quite a few other stitches, some overcasts and things like that. But the primary thing I think most of you guys and girls are going to be doing is a lot of straight stitching. So you also see two colors here. You see the A through G in blue, but you also see it in red, or purple, I guess I'll call it. These are your stretch stitches. These are stitches that will go back and forth, and they're good for overcasting, decorative stitches, and so on. So we were on plain old A, right? Over here on blue. We were on blue A, and we got a regular straight stitch. But let's go to this SS or straight stitch dial. And what you're gonna do is just turn that dial, and it kind of clicks in and locks in on SS. So all these purple stitches, you're gonna get them by the SS. Now this is a good heavy duty stitch, good for top stitching, and you're gonna see a lot of these stitches go what's called tri-motion. They go back and forth. So I don't want you just shoving your fabric through. Let the machine do the work. So this is kind of letting it do its work just like that. I'm going to stop for a second. Remember we did zigzag. I'm going to go to a zigzag stitch, but I'm still on SS right here, okay, which is C, SS, C, SS. This is going to be now a tri-motion or a rickrack stitch, a nice decorative stitch that you can do. And stop. Now my needle's almost all the way up. That's kind of good. Make sure it's all the way up and go. So what we ended up having is a heavy duty straight stitch for top stitching and things, and a rickrack or a 3-thread zigzag. Another fun one while we're doing this one, if you're doing some top stitching or quilting, see number D. I'm on SS. We got the purple, and I'm going to go to D. And this one right now will, again, back and forth, back and forth. So these stitches will give you some nice work. Hand wheel towards you, up with the take-up lever. So very nice, like a smocking stitch. So you have some great stitches to play with. You also have a nice buttonholer that you can use. And a couple other things about the machine. It is a free arm machine. This little piece comes off, and you will find all your accessories in here. This is great if you're doing an arm or a leg or a little pocketbook and you want to put your project around it. So this is your free arm area right here. And you might ask, Kayla, what's that number? What's that number up there? Right here. This is your top tension. Most of the machines you're going to be having always have about a 4 top tension. You really don't need to play with this. If you have the same thread top and bottom, you're going to have a balanced stitch. You know, if you're playing around with heavy thread, lightweight bobbin, you might have to play with that. So that is tension. Needles, we haven't talked about those. Janome needles or Schmetz. Those are the 2 brand needles. You get a little pack of size 14s in there. If you are quilting and cotton, I would suggest a size 12 needle, like that. We do have those in the store and online also. You have a nice manual book to refer to, for sure, and you have a couple of other feet that come with the machine. One is a blind hem foot and a little bit of a zipper foot. This little baby, you might think, what the heck is this? That is a screwdriver, so you can take your throat plate off because it's nice and small. Fits right in there like that. And this is actually the buttonhole foot. So there's a couple of things you might be interested in, and these are optional. I'll tell you that right now, they're optional. But if you're a quilter or starting to quilt, Janome makes a wonderful 1/4 inch seam foot. And it's a foot that you would screw ankle and foot that you would screw on. And what this does is as you sew, the edge of the black guide goes right on the edge of the fabric and it lines up perfectly with a 1/4 inch seam. So those are available. The other thing eventually, when we're quilting and we have batting and you want to sew through all your layers, this is what's called a walking foot. It screws on your machine and it has top feed teeth that mesh with the bottom, and it actually feeds all your layers together. You don't have slippage for sure. And again, they are available. So walking foot, 1/4 inch foot. Last but not least, I think I mentioned this, but so let's say you have a car and it takes unleaded gas. Now I'm showing my age here. You only want to use unleaded gas. If you use something else, you're in trouble. That's how I really relate bobbins. Bobbins you need the right bobbin for your machine. You might have a lot of different brand machines home, and that's wonderful, but Janome bobbins only. I have many people who, they look different. They look about the same. They put them in. Oh, my thread isn't right. My tension's not right. Please, Janome bobbins. Makes life easy. So this is just a little overview I wanted to do so you can go home and enjoy your machine. And we're always here for questions. We do have a lot of these Janome products on our website because I know some of you guys are pretty far away, but we'd love to help you. So again, this is the Janome 5812, and I am Kayla from the Fabric Garden in Madison, Maine, and fabricgarden.com. We've been a dealer for 36 years. Very happy to help you. Thank you.